Pretend to be my wife, the millionaire doctor whispered. But she was shocked by his one request. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Rain hammered the glass walls of Pierce Medical Center, blurring the city lights into silver streaks. Inside, everything was sterile, perfect, and cold, just like Dr. Adrian Pierce's reputation. He was the youngest neurosurgeon in New York to own a private hospital, a man the press called the doctor with a god complex. But tonight, even gods looked tired. In the dim hallway, a nurse walked alone, clutching a clipboard to her chest. Her name was Ava Lane, 28, dedicated, broke, and invisible to most of the people she worked for. The fluorescent light flickered as she passed, and the sound of her worn-out sneakers echoed against the marble floor. She was supposed to finish her shift at midnight, but one of her patients had taken a bad turn, and she stayed to help. As she turned the corner toward the staff lockers, she froze. The door to the director's office was half open, light spilling through the gap. A deep voice said her name. "Miss Lane, come in." Dr. Pierce was there, still in his surgical scrubs, blood-stained gloves resting on the desk like evidence. His face looked carved from stone, every movement precise. On the desk, beside a medical file, lay something strange, a white velvet ring box. Ava blinked, unsure she was seeing right. "Sir, did something happen?" she asked. "Yes," he said simply. "I need your help in something. Personal." Her pulse quickened. "Personnel?" He opened the box. Inside was a gold wedding ring. "I need you to pretend to be my wife." The silence that followed was almost violent. Ava laughed once, dry and nervous. "You are joking, right?" "I do not joke," he replied. "The hospital board has been waiting for a reason to remove me. They call me unstable. They want proof that I can lead a family before they let me lead this hospital." Claude. "And you think marrying your nurse is the solution?" "I think saving your mother's life might be the right motivation for you to consider it." Her stomach dropped. "How do you know about my mother?" He tapped the file on his desk. Her mother's medical record, every unpaid bill, every dialysis report. "You are behind on payments. Without the surgery, she will not survive another month," he said softly. "I can pay for it. In exchange, you help me. A marriage. Strictly professional. 2 weeks. Ava's heart thudded. "That is blackmail." "It is business," he corrected. Outside, thunder cracked so loud it shook the windows. She wanted to run, but her feet would not move. Part of her was terrified of him. Another part was terrified of losing her mother. She whispered, "And what happens when it is over?" He leaned back, eyes dark and unreadable. "Then you walk away, debt-free, your mother healthy, and no one will ever know." Ava stared at the ring. Something about it felt wrong, too easy, too clean. But the rain kept falling, and her phone buzzed with a new hospital bill notification. She closed her eyes. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow morning," he said. "Bring a dress." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her once more. "Oh, and Ava," he added, "for this to work, you must not fall in love with me." The rain outside went silent. If you were Ava, would you sign that contract? Tell us in the comments below. The next morning came too soon. Ava had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ring box, the contract, and the cold precision in Dr. Pierce's voice. The city was still gray from the storm when she arrived at the hospital. Her reflection in the glass doors looked like a stranger, eyes tired, shoulders tense, heart trapped between fear and duty. Inside the administrative wing, everything gleamed with wealth. Gold plaques, marble floors, and framed photographs of Dr. Pierce shaking hands with governors and investors. Ava felt smaller with each step she took. The receptionist gave her a polite smile, but a suspicious look. "You are expected," the woman said, and pointed her toward the private conference room. Dr. Pierce was already there, standing by the window. He was wearing a black suit this time, the kind of suit that probably cost more than her car. He turned as she entered. "You are on time. Good. Klan. I said I would be," she replied, forcing steadiness into her voice. On the table lay a thick folder, stamped with legal seals. Next to it sat 2 cups of untouched coffee. One was hers. She noticed the faint trace of steam and realized he had ordered it exactly the way she liked black, 2 sugars. That small detail unsettled her more than the entire situation. He gestured to the seat across from him. Before you sign anything, you should read the terms carefully. Quo. She sat down and flipped through the pages. The first line read, Marriage agreement between Dr. Adrian Pierce and Miss Ava Lane, valid for 14 days from the date of signing. Her eyes moved to the numbered clauses. No emotional attachment, no sharing of personal living quarters. Public appearances required as scheduled by the PR team. Absolute confidentiality. Termination without consequence, after 14 days. And then, written in smaller print at the bottom, as if added by hand, Rule 6, no tears. She frowned. Why this last one? He met her gaze. Because tears make people ask questions. Questions lead to truth, and truth ruins deals. The air grew heavier. Do you always talk like that? She asked quietly. Only when I have something to lose, he said. Ava leaned back, eyes scanning the city skyline outside. This feels wrong, you know. Marriage is supposed to mean something. Quote. He replied, Meaning is a luxury people like us cannot afford. The way he said people like us made her pause. For a brief second his tone cracked, revealing something fragile underneath the arrogance. She wondered what he was hiding. Ava placed the pen on the table but did not sign. You promise my mother's surgery will be covered immediately? I already transferred the funds to her attending physician this morning, he said. You can call to confirm. Her chest tightened. You really did it? I do not lie, Miss Lane. Not when lives are involved. She stared at the signature line again. Ava Lane. A nurse. A daughter. A woman about to enter the most bizarre agreement of her life. The clock on the wall ticked louder with each second. Finally, she picked up the pen and signed. When she pushed the folder back to him, her hands were trembling. There, you have your wife. He glanced at the signature and gave a single nod. And you have your miracle. Quote. Then he slid a small jewelry box across the table. You will need this. Inside was a diamond ring, simple, elegant, blinding. This will make it believable, he said. Ava slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. She exhaled slowly. So, what now? He smiled faintly. Now we prepare you to be Mrs. Pierce. Somewhere deep down, she felt the world tilt. Have you ever agreed to something that felt wrong but somehow necessary? Share your thoughts below. The following afternoon, Ava found herself standing in front of a full-length mirror in a penthouse suite she had only ever seen in magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked over Manhattan, the skyline glittering under the pale winter Sunday. Every corner of the room screamed money, from the marble floors to the delicate white roses arranged beside a tray of sparkling water. She had been escorted here by Dr. Pierce's assistant, a woman named Claire whose voice carried the smooth tone of someone used to giving orders. The stylist will arrive in 10 minutes, Claire said. Dr. Pierce wants you ready for your first appearance as his wife at the charity gala tonight. Ava stared at her reflection. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, and the plain hospital uniform she still wore looked painfully out of place. I am not sure I belong here, she whispered. Claire's smile was professional but empty. Belonging is not required, Miss Lane. Only performance. When Claire left, silence filled the suite. Ava touched the diamond ring on her finger. It still felt foreign, like a borrowed lie she could not return. The stylist arrived soon after, followed by 2 assistants carrying racks of dresses and boxes of shoes. You must be Mrs. Pierce, the stylist greeted, her tone bright but curious. Let us make you shine. Quote. They transformed her within an hour, hair curled in soft waves, makeup subtle but flawless, a deep emerald gown hugging her frame. When she finally looked at herself again, she barely recognized the woman in the mirror. A knock came at the door. Come in, she said, her voice unsteady. Adrian Pierce stepped inside, dressed in a black tuxedo. The contrast between his dark suit and her emerald dress was cinematic. For the first time, his expression softened. You clean up well, he said. I am not sure if that is a compliment or an observation, she replied. Both, he said with a small smirk. He walked closer, studying her face, then adjusted a strand of hair that had fallen near her cheek. The gesture was professional, yet something in his touch lingered just a fraction too long. Remember, he said quietly, the board will be there tonight. They need to believe we are in love. I will do my best, she murmured. He tilted his head, watching her carefully. You do not have to act too hard. Just stay close to me. Smile when I touch your hand. Look at me like you trust me. Ava met his gaze, trying to find a trace of the man beneath the perfection. That might be the hardest part. For a moment, his eyes flickered with something she could not name sadness. Maybe guilt, but then it was gone. Hours later, the grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel shimmered with chandeliers and crystal glasses. Photographers lined the entrance, flashes already popping as the guests arrived. When Adrian offered his arm, Ava took it, her heart racing. The doors opened. "Dr. and Mrs. Adrian Pierce," the announcer declared. Heads turned. The crowd applauded. The cameras flashed like lightning. Adrian leaned close and whispered, "Smile, they are watching." Ava forced a smile, but her pulse thundered in her ears. He guided her through the room, every move rehearsed but every touch unexpectedly real. Near the stage, a woman whispered loudly, "Is that her? The nurse? He really married her?" Ava pretended not to hear, but the words burned. Adrian must have caught it too because he squeezed her hand slightly. "Ignore them," he murmured. "They do not matter." But they did matter to her. Every whisper reminded her how fragile this illusion was. If you were in her place, could you handle pretending to be someone you are not in front of the entire city? Tell us what you think in the comments. The night of the gala stretched like a performance that refused to end. The orchestra played softly while laughter echoed across the marble hall. Adrian stood beside Ava, one arm resting lightly around her waist as cameras flashed again and again. To anyone watching, they looked like the perfect couple, wealth, elegance, and chemistry captured under chandelier light. But under that fragile surface, Ava felt her pulse racing. Every smile was measured, every movement calculated. "Mrs. Pierce," an older board member greeted her, shaking her hand. "You are even lovelier than the magazines made you out to be." Ava blinked, startled. "Magazines?" Her eyes darted toward Adrian. He smiled easily. "Public relations moved fast," he whispered. "You are trending already." She forced another smile, the kind that did not reach her eyes. "I am flattered." They moved through clusters of guests, pausing for polite conversations. Adrian was effortless, every word smooth, every gesture confident. Yet every time his hand brushed hers, Ava could feel the heat of something real beneath the act. Halfway through the evening, Adrian led her to a quiet balcony, overlooking the glittering skyline. The cool air brushed against her shoulders, carrying the faint hum of the city below. "You are doing well," he said softly. "You fooled even the most skeptical board members." Ava leaned against the railing. "Maybe because I stopped trying to fool anyone. I just did what you told me, stay close, smile, look like I trust you." He studied her face. "And do you?" Her breath caught. "Does it matter?" "Yes," he said simply. Something unspoken lingered between them, heavy and fragile. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the moment. His expression darkened as he read the message. "What is it?" she asked. "Nothing," he replied too quickly, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "Come on, we should go inside." But Ava had already seen the name flashing on his screen, Lucas Pierce. She remembered the whispers, Adrian's half-brother, the one rumored to be fighting for control of the hospital. As they returned to the ballroom, the host called Adrian to the stage. "Please welcome Dr. Adrian Pierce, our keynote speaker and the visionary behind Pierce Medical Center." Applause erupted. Adrian squeezed Ava's hand before stepping onto the stage. He looked every bit the confident leader, the kind of man who could convince anyone of anything. "Tonight," he began, "we celebrate compassion, the one thing medicine cannot function without. It is not about money or power. It is about people who care." Ava watched him from below, her chest tightening. The words were perfect, but his eyes kept finding hers in the crowd, as if daring her to believe he meant them. When the speech ended, the room filled with clapping and flashes. Reporters swarmed the stage, firing questions. One voice cut through the noise. "Dr. Pierce, is it true you married a nurse for publicity?" The crowd gasped. Cameras turned. Ava's heart stopped. Adrian's jaw tightened. "My wife is a nurse," he said calmly, "and she is the reason this hospital still stands. She saves lives every day. I only save them on paper." The room fell silent. Then applause rose again, hesitant at first, then thunderous. Ava felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them away. Rule 6. No tears. Later, when the music resumed, Adrian returned to her side. "You handled that well," she said. He smiled faintly. "So did you." For the first time, the smile looked real. The gala ended close to midnight, but Ava's mind refused to rest. Even as the limousine glided through the wet streets of Manhattan, her pulse still echoed the rhythm of the applause from hours earlier. Adrian sat beside her, silent, his gaze fixed on the city lights passing through the tinted window. "Thank you," he said suddenly. His voice was softer now, stripped of authority. "For what?" she asked. For not running away when the press attacked. You stayed. Ava gave a faint laugh. I did not have much of a choice. Running in heels was not part of the contract. He almost smiled. Still, you could have walked out. Most people would have. Quote, Maybe I am not most people, she said quietly. The car stopped in front of the Pierce residence, a modern glass mansion at the edge of the city. Ava followed him inside. The air smelled of rain and cedar. Everything looked pristine, too perfect to feel lived in. This place looks like a museum, she murmured. I like order, he replied. It keeps chaos out. Ava walked through the foyer, her reflection following her in the polished marble. Do you ever get tired of pretending? She asked. He paused. Pretending? To be perfect, to be untouchable, to be everything people expect you to be. Adrian turned to her, eyes unreadable. You think I am pretending? She met his gaze. I think everyone does, at some point. The silence between them was electric, uncomfortable, honest and heavy with something she did not want to name. Claire appeared at the top of the stairs, breaking the tension. The guest room has been prepared, Mrs. Pierce. Ava blinked at the title. It still sounded strange. Thank you, Claire. Adrian gestured toward the staircase. You can rest. Tomorrow we have an interview for the hospital's charity program. Public relations wants us to look in sync. Right, she said, heading up the stairs. Good night, Dr. Pierce. He hesitated. Good night, Ava. In her room, Ava removed her jewelry and gown, staring at the ring on her finger. She could not tell whether it felt heavier because of its value or because of what it represented, a promise built on lies. She sat on the bed, scrolling through her phone. A new message from the hospital appeared. Payment received. Surgery scheduled for Tuesday. Tears welled up instantly. Her mother would live. The contract had already changed her life, and yet she could not shake the feeling that something about it was about to destroy her peace. Downstairs, Adrian stood in his study, loosening his tie. He looked at the photo on his desk, his late mother's portrait. I did what you wanted, Mother, he whispered. The board will not take the hospital away. But even as he said it, a hollow ache filled his chest. He knew he had crossed a line again. The next morning, the world woke up to headlines. The Pierces steal the spotlight. The perfect couple of New York. Ava looked at the screen in disbelief. Her face, smiling beside Adrian, was everywhere. When she arrived downstairs, Adrian was already waiting. 2 cups of coffee on the counter. Do you always read the comments? He asked. Only when I need to remind myself how cruel people can be. They will move on to the next story soon, he said. They always do. She took the cup and met his eyes. Maybe they will, but we will still have to live with this one. Quote, he said nothing, but the way he looked at her told her he was beginning to understand exactly what that meant. 3 days later, Ava stood in front of the camera lights, feeling her nerves tangle with the wire of the microphone clipped to her dress. The hospital's charity interview was being broadcast live from the main lobby, and every corner of the room gleamed under studio brightness. The PR director had instructed them to look authentic but aspirational. Quote, Adrian stood beside her in a gray suit, calm and unbothered, as if the world outside did not exist. His voice carried smoothly across the microphones. At Pierce Medical, we believe compassion is the foundation of medicine, he said, and I am fortunate to have a partner who embodies that compassion. He turned to Ava, his tone softening. My wife reminds me every day that saving lives begins with kindness. Ava smiled, and for a moment she forgot the cameras, the deal, and the lies. His eyes were steady on hers, and something real flickered between them, something that did not feel rehearsed. After the broadcast ended, reporters surrounded them with more questions, but Adrian guided her through the chaos, his hand resting protectively on her back. They made it to the private elevator before either of them spoke. You did well, he said. So did you, she replied. You almost convinced me you actually meant it. His lips curved faintly. Maybe I did. Quote, her heart skipped a beat. Then maybe that is the problem. The elevator doors opened to the top floor. Instead of heading to his office, Adrian walked toward the hospital terrace. The sky was soft with late afternoon light, and a cool breeze carried the scent of disinfectant and rain. I come here when I need to remember why I started this, he said, resting his hands on the railing. Ava joined him, looking out over the city. To play God? To save what I could not, he said quietly. She glanced at him. What do you mean? My mother died in this hospital, he said. A surgical error. She trusted the wrong people. I built this place so that would never happen again. The words landed between them like a confession. I am sorry, Ava said softly. He nodded. I do not talk about it, not to anyone. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city moved below like a heartbeat. Then Adrian turned to her. You remind me of her sometimes. The way you fight for people. Quote. Ava felt her throat tighten. That is a strange thing to tell your fake wife. He smiled faintly, eyes warm for once. Maybe that is what makes it safe to say. The silence stretched, gentle and charged. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her mother. The doctors say the surgery was a success. I am feeling stronger already. Ava's vision blurred. She made it, she whispered. Adrian looked at her, genuine relief flickering across his face. Good. That is all that matters. Quote. She nodded, wiping at her eyes quickly. Rule 6, she said. No tears. He chuckled quietly. Maybe we should consider breaking a few rules. Their laughter faded into the hum of the city below. That night, Ava could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his expression on the terrace raw, unguarded, human. For the first time, she wondered if she was still pretending. Downstairs, Adrian sat alone in his study. The contract opened before him. His eyes lingered on her signature, then on Rule 1. No emotional attachment. He closed the folder slowly and whispered, Too late. Have you ever realized that a lie you told yourself started to feel true? Share your thoughts below. The morning after her mother's successful surgery, Ava arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. The air felt lighter, almost hopeful, but that sense of calm would not last long. The front page of the New York Daily Journal waited on every reception desk, and the headline sent a chill through her veins. Pierce Medical's marriage scandal, inside the fake love story of Dr. Adrian Pierce. Her stomach twisted. The article contained photographs from the gala, screenshots of the marriage certificate, and an anonymous claim that the relationship was part of a public relations cover-up. Ava's name was printed in bold letters. She barely had time to process before her phone began vibrating calls, messages, notifications flooding in all at once. Her heart pounded as she slipped into a staff hallway, searching for air. Claire found her first, her face pale but composed. Ava, you need to come upstairs. Now. Who did this? Ava whispered. Claire's expression hardened. It was Lucas. He has been digging for weeks. He wants Adrian out, and this is how he plans to do it. Ava followed her to the top floor. Outside Adrian's office, the press was already gathering, cameras flashing through the glass doors. Security tried to hold them back. Inside, Adrian stood by the window, his jaw clenched, his phone pressed to his ear. Yes, I saw it, he said sharply. Pull every statement until I approve it myself. I do not want a single word from PR until I have spoken. He ended the call and turned to Ava. I am so sorry, she began, but he cut her off. This is not your fault, he said. Lucas has been waiting for a chance to destroy me. He just found one that looks elegant enough for the headlines. But my name, my career, it is all over the internet, she said, her voice trembling. People think I traded my dignity for money. Adrian's expression softened for a moment. You will not lose your career. I will fix this. How? She demanded. You cannot undo the truth. This was never real, and now everyone knows. He stepped closer, his voice low but intense. It was real enough to protect you. Your mother got her surgery. You are safe. That does not make it right, she said, tears filling her eyes. I was not supposed to become your scandal. Before he could respond, the office door burst open. Reporters shouted questions. Flashes blinded her. Doctor Pierce, did you pay your wife to marry you? Miss Lane, were you promised money for medical bills? Is the marriage being annulled? Security rushed in to push them out, but the damage was already done. Ava turned toward Adrian, her hands shaking. This is not just about your hospital anymore, she said. This is my life. He looked at her, and for the first time, he had no answer. She took off the ring and placed it on the desk. I am done pretending. Quote. Adrian's eyes followed the ring as it landed with a soft metallic sound. Ava, please. No, she said, her voice breaking. You made me believe that this could stay clean, that no one would get hurt. But look at us. She walked out before he could stop her. Outside the building, the reporters swarmed, shouting her name. She pushed through the crowd until the noise became a blur of voices and camera clicks. When she finally reached the street, she felt the weight of freedom and heartbreak collide in her chest. The sky was gray again, just like the day they met. Back in his office, Adrian stared at the ring on his desk and whispered, You broke rule number 5. Then he closed his eyes. So did I. 3 days passed, and the world would not stop talking. News anchors debated whether Ava Lane had been a victim or an opportunist. Social media turned her face into a meme, her name into a hashtag. Every headline paired her photograph beside Adrian's, two people trapped in a lie that had escaped their control. Ava stayed in a small apartment far from the city center, avoiding every call. Her mother had begged her to come home, but she refused. She could not bring the shame back with her. The worst part was that she did not even know how much of what she had felt had been real. That evening, a knock sounded at the door. She froze. When she opened it, Claire stood there, holding an envelope. "He asked me to give you this," Claire said. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. "Pierce Medical Board meeting. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Please come. Trust me one last time. A.P." Ava almost tore the paper apart. "He wants me to walk into that building again? After what he did?" Claire hesitated. "He is not asking for forgiveness. He is trying to stop Lucas. They are voting to remove him from the hospital. He plans to make a statement about everything." Ava closed the door slowly. She did not sleep that night. The letter lay on the bedside table, its presence louder than the ticking clock. The next morning, she arrived at the hospital lobby wearing a simple gray coat, her hair pulled back. Reporters recognized her immediately, shouting her name, but she walked straight through without answering. In the boardroom, a dozen executives sat around a polished oak table. Lucas Pierce stood at the head, confidence gleaming like armor. Adrian was there too, calm but pale. When he saw her enter, his expression flickered between relief and disbelief. "You should not have come," he murmured. "You asked me to," she replied. Lucas smirked. "How poetic. The nurse returns for the final act." Adrian faced the board. "I will make this brief. The allegations are true. The marriage began as a contract." A murmur rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. "But what you do not understand," Adrian continued, his voice steady, "is that this contract ended long before it was exposed. Because somewhere between the rules and the lies, I forgot how to separate what was fake from what was real." He turned toward Ava. "She reminded me why this hospital existed in the first place: to care, to protect, to heal. She saved more than my reputation. She saved my purpose." Lucas laughed, clapping slowly. "A touching speech. But this is a boardroom, not a love story. The vote stands." Adrian looked at the chairwoman. "Before you vote, you should know one thing. Lucas leaked private medical files to the press to frame this as fraud. Those files included patient data and Ava's mother's information." Gasps filled the room. Lucas's face went pale. "That is a crime," the chairwoman said sharply. "Do you have proof?" Adrian placed a flash drive on the table. Every email, every transaction, quote. The board erupted in whispers. Security stepped toward Lucas as he stumbled backward, shouting denials. Amid the chaos, Ava felt her chest tighten. She looked at Adrian, who finally let out a breath that sounded like surrender. "You just destroyed your brother's career," she said quietly. He turned to her. "I was only saving what truly mattered." When the board adjourned, Adrian walked to her slowly. "I meant what I said in there. I do not want a contract anymore. I want something real." Quote. Ava looked at him, torn between anger and compassion. "What are you asking me?" He took her hand gently. "Marry me, for real this time." The boardroom emptied slowly after the chaos, leaving only silence and the soft hum of the city beyond the glass walls. Ava stood still, the echo of Adrian's words hanging in the air. He had just destroyed his brother's future, risked his own empire, and then looked at her as if none of that mattered. He had asked her to marry him again, but this time without a contract. Ava stared at him, unable to speak. For weeks, every rule, every lie, and every photo had defined her. She had been the nurse who signed a deal, the woman who smiled for cameras, the name behind a scandal. Now he wanted her to become something real, something that would not vanish when the lights went out. "Adrian," she whispered, "you do not need to do this. The board already knows the truth. You have your hospital back." He shook his head. "This is not about the hospital anymore. I lost myself in this deal. You reminded me what honesty looks like. You reminded me that love does not come from winning, it comes from choosing." Her eyes filled with tears. "You were the one who said tears ruin deals." He smiled faintly. "Then let us ruin this one completely." For a moment she almost believed it could be that simple. But reality still lingered. "People will never stop talking about us," she said. "They will call it another act." "Then let them watch," he said. "At least this time, it will be the truth." He took her hand and, without hesitation, slipped the ring back onto her finger, the same one she had left on his desk. But this time, it was not part of a script. The metal felt warm, alive. Weeks later, the scandal faded into the noise of newer stories. Lucas was gone, facing legal investigations, and the hospital stabilized under Adrian's leadership. But what people remembered most was not the chaos, it was the speech that changed everything. Donations poured in. The foundation named a new branch in honor of Ava's mother. Spring arrived in New York. The air smelled of rain and magnolia. The hospital garden was blooming when Adrian found Ava sitting on a bench during her break, still in her nurse's uniform. "Mrs. Pierce," he said softly. She turned, smiling. "I told you I am keeping my job." "I would not have it any other way," he said, sitting beside her. "You make this place feel human." They watched the volunteers plant flowers along the walkway, patients laughing nearby. For once, the world felt quiet. "You know," she said, "it is strange. All that pretending, and somehow, this feels more real than anything I have ever known." Adrian reached into his pocket and handed her a folded paper. Inside was the original contract, the one with all the rules. Rule 1, no emotional attachment. Rule 6, no tears. He had crossed them both out with a pen and written 2 new lines beneath. Rule 1, tell the truth. Rule 2, love without condition. Ava laughed softly, tears escaping despite her effort to stop them. "You broke every rule, Dr. Pierce." He smiled. "So did you." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that feels like peace. Later that evening, the hospital held its first anniversary gala since the scandal. Adrian walked on stage and thanked the staff, the donors, and the patients. When he called Ava up to join him, the audience rose in applause. "This hospital was built on science," he said, "but it survives because of love, the kind that heals, forgives, and never pretends." Ava looked at him through tears, the ring gleaming under the lights. He whispered near her ear, "No cameras this time, just us." And she whispered back, "Then this is real." Close. Do you believe that love born from a mistake can still be true? Tell us what you think in the comments below, and thank you for watching this story to the very end.